So today I'm going to tell you about our new SBGrid installation manager. So this is a software that we've developed in-house to install the SBGrid software stack. So I think everybody on this call probably knows pretty well, but I just like to put it out there that our sort of mission statement, our goal here at SBGrid is we're a nonprofit, we're academics, we're based at Harvard Medical School, and our goal is to make computing in structural biology easier, right? So to minimize this technological barrier between people working in the lab, their data, and getting their papers written. And so we've been doing this for about 10 years. We are over 400 member labs now, which is amazing and humbling. More than 20 countries. So, we're growing all the time, and we're happy to do it. It's a privilege to be able to enable so much science. I think one of the biggest ways we do that is with our software stack. So we have more than 450 applications now for structural biology. Of course, these are not all created equal. Some of these are only updated sporadically. Some of them are ancient and probably will never see updates ever again. Some of them are updated seemingly every week. So we follow the developments in these software projects. We work with developers. We keep the latest versions installed and around, and we're structural biologists. So, and we're in the structural biology community here at HMS and Harvard. So we're using them. So we know not specifically every application that we install, but we know people who are using basically every application that we install. So we can kind of referee and curate these in a way that hopefully works well scalably for the community. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. We've got a brand new piece of software that we're calling the SBGrid Installation Manager. It comes in two flavors. There's a command line version that I've talked about before, and I think people are using. This has been around for a while, and there's a Linux version, there's a Mac version. It allows you to just pick and choose your software and install it. Today, I'm going to talk about our new graphical version. So the new graphical version has not been formally released, though I've shared some beta versions with users, and we're this close to releasing this. So this will be a great chance to show it off and sort of walk you through how it works. And we can discuss, take some questions, and see where it goes from there. So the first step, the installation manager is based around individual accounts. So if you don't have an account, you can go to sbgrid.org, register. There's also a link, I think right on our front page, there's a button. And you can register yourself for an account. So all members of all SBGrid labs are eligible. So if you're in an SBGrid lab, you're eligible to sign up. There's no limit. We don't limit the number of software installs. So you can install it on your computer in your lab. You can install it in your computer at home, put it on your laptop, put it in AWS. We don't limit how often or where you install it. We do restrict it by, it has to be within the SBGrid sort of member lab itself. But other than that, wherever you need to do your computing, the software should be able to be installed there. So we release new versions fairly often. Those are available on our wiki page. So you can go to sbgrid.org/wiki. You can download the latest versions. The new graphical version that I'm going to talk about today isn't there right now, but it will be either today or later. The documentation needs to catch up a little bit, and hopefully I can take a lot of what we're going to talk about today in this presentation and put it there to sort of back that, so people have some information on how to get that installed. To get this installed, you'll need macOS 10.13 or later. It might work on earlier versions. We just don't really test on those anymore. But 10.13, 14, 15, and the macOS 11, the Big Sur, should be fine. For Linux, CentOS 7, CentOS 8, RHEL 7, RHEL 8, those should work. Those are our supported Linux distros. We can talk more about other Linux distros a little bit at the end of the talk. You'll need network connectivity. So specifically, you need to be able to reach our servers. The client itself, the installation manager, should be, it's clever and it tries a few different ports just in case you might have restrictions on your network to reach the download servers, which are based here at Harvard Medical School. But in some cases, you may be firewalled in by your university or your institution. Particularly, I see this in hospital settings. Like hospital networks tend to be pretty locked down. So if you need to have some sort of network exception in place, a lot of IT departments can help you get that, and we are happy to interface with them to give them the data they need to be able to open those ports if you want to use it. You need some free disk space. Mac laptops these days they're not huge in terms of sort of file system space, but this is all just depending on what you want to install. So one of the great things about installing software this way is that you can install the packages you need at the moment, and then if you need the space back, you can just delete those. And then, a month later, if you need it back, you just install it again. So it allows you to sort of keep a rotating set of software, even if your disk is only, say 512 gigs, or maybe you've got a 1 terabyte. But if yours is like mine, it's full of, lots of other stuff. So you don't have a lot of space around for software. So the applications themselves, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Linux and the Mac separately for a second, just how to launch them. But most of what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the talk will be common to both. So the Linux application is distributed as an app image, which is like an app bundle for Mac. These sort of .app. They're essentially directories full of a sort of hierarchy of files. It just acts the same way. You can make it executable and just run it from the GUI, or you can launch it from the command line. Oh, sorry. I've got a little video showing that here. So I've got the command down here to make this executable. I did, and then I just click on it. This is my CentOS desktop. And there it goes. So that's how you get started with Linux. And then for the Mac, it's distributed as a sort of the standard DMG, the disk image on Mac OS, and it's an app bundle within that. So you can just double click on it, and it will work. Now there's a couple of caveats to that. Mac OS has a security feature that called Gatekeeper. It's been around for a while. You've probably run into it if you're a Mac user. The sort of hallmark of Gatekeeper is that you'll double click an app bundle and it will tell you that it cannot identify the application developer. So Mac has a system where developers register and then they get specific credentials that they can use to approve the applications that they distribute, so that Apple knows who's distributing what, and that at some level they can assure you that it's free from malware or other sort of nefarious software. So because we're early in the development stage here, we don't have our app bundle signed, but we will. This won't be necessary in the future, hopefully. So you'll see a window like I'm showing here. If you right click on the app bundle, or control click if you're on the single mouse, you get a menu. You can go to open, and then once you select open, you get a new menu. So, and that new menu will have now the same thing that it had before, but it has this open button. So this allows you to launch applications that are not signed for Gatekeeper. So with the initial builds, I think we'll need to do this. Once we have our sort of production one done and it's out, this shouldn't be necessary, but it's a quick little workaround for the Gatekeeper. I've noticed in some systems, I had to do it twice. Like the control, the first control click did not give me the open button, and then the second one does. So, and I'm showing this on Big Sur, which is the latest, so it should work. So getting started here, to sign into the and download software, you first have to activate your installation. So to do that, we provide a combo of site name, username, and key. You get this when you register. We just email it to you. And you take that and you launch the application. Now I'm going to pause this video real quick. So in the future, you'll only get one key. It'll just be a single key. And the default configuration is still set up for a single key. You get this single window. But if you click activate site, username, key credentials, you can switch to the three field, which is our sort of legacy one. So eventually we'll just distribute the single one. But so here I'm activating. I'm going to paste my key in because there are these very long strings. I hit activate. And so it's going to check in. So it's asking me now for credentials. So what password is this, right? So we just put in a password. This is my password for my Mac. So this is my login password for my Mac. So what is it doing with my password? So we don't install any software into the system. We don't install anything into anywhere where you have other applications. SBGrid sets off on opt SBGrid in its own space, and it doesn't interfere with anything else. But to create that opt SBGrid directory, it needs admin credentials. So that's all it's doing here. The application should create that directory, install there, and then to use any of the software to run the application in the future, you won't need a password. It's just the first creation of that directory. So start this off. There's my super secret password. So it will run through the installation, it'll synchronize. It's going to download a bunch of libraries that are sort of core to a lot of the applications. It downloads the latest version of itself, and then it sets up the installation. And I'm just going to jump ahead here a bit because it takes a little while. And then there you go. That's what the successfully activated installation looks like. So that's the same on Mac and Linux. So from here on out, everything that I tell you will be the same for both. So just one quick note, and we're going to fix this as we go forward, but on Mac 10, 15, and later, so the Mac, the Apple file system that was introduced in 10.15 is read-only on the / partition. So that means you can't write anything to the root of the directory. So that's not usually a big deal, but we rely on a path at /programs. So to make that work, Apple has a workaround, and it's in the form of this file called synthetic.conf. So if you create this file, you put in just this single entry, where you want the root link to be and where you want to point it, and then you reboot your machine, and you can create the link. So we'll manage this a little more elegantly in the future, but Apple is always increasing sort of the security of their OS a lot lately, actually. And so this is one of the things they introduced that sort of made it tough for a lot of software programs that relied on this, on paths that started in the root of the file system. So if you have questions, you can go check it out on our wiki. I'm sure if you just Google the SBGrid wiki and go to this page for Catalina, there's a one-liner that's like a single command. If you run this command, it just puts the file in place for you with the right contents. You just open a terminal, run that command, reboot, and you're set. But like I said, we're going to make this explicitly managed in the software at some point in the future, so you won't have to do this. And then some point later in the future, hopefully, we'll relocate the whole software stack so that we won't even need to have a link at /programs. But for now, this is required. All right, so let's take a look at the interface here. So this is the home page. When you open up the install client or the installation manager, it opens to the home page, and then it's got your sort of news and your software here. So these are buttons over here on the left side. So the shield is a button too, this SBGrid logo. That takes you to the home. Then there's the installed, the programs, tasks, docs, and contact buttons. And then there's another button down here at the bottom for the sbgrid.org. That just takes you to our website. And so this pane here includes new and updated software titles. So I did this one yesterday. I just took a snapshot. So we had CCP4. We had a new version of Rely On that I built for Mac. And then, IGV had a couple of updates. So those come up there, and you can see that little blue text. We'll talk a little bit more about this. It says plus reinstall or plus install. So that allows you to install those right from this page. But there's we're going to talk more about installing later. There's a dedicated interface for that. But just as a convenience, those are right there. And then in the news area, we've got upcoming talks. We've got some of the tales and articles that we have on our website that we post about members and ongoing projects. We've got positions that people ask us to post, and then sort of more content there. So you can click through and check out this stuff. We're always updating the website with these nice tales and job postings and that sort of thing. We include this SBGrid terminal button. So this is just a convenience feature where you can click this. It opens your terminal. It sources the files that you need to source to sort of set up your SBGrid environment. And so you can just click this button and you're ready to run software. So it's just a convenience. You don't have to configure your .bashrc, your .tcshrc. It's ready to go right from just clicking the button. All right, so switch down one more. So we're just going to go down to the installed screen. So I click the installed button. This is just all the software you have installed so far. If you haven't installed anything, this would be empty. So you can see on this is all the titles that you've installed. So on my machine here, I had 5 titles installed. We've got these all action buttons. These are just conveniences. So if I just want to update everything, you can hit update all. If you just want to install everything, you can go ahead and install everything. The buttons add the things that your actions to a task manager that's in this tasks pane that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So you can also click these. Let's see if I have these collections over on the left. So these are just filters. So you can filter what you're seeing in the list here by the collection. So crystallography software, EM software, NMR software, or just the software that have available updates. So you can just see what's available that you have installed. So next screen down on the programs. So this is all of the software on the programs pane. So you see all available titles. There's a search bar up here at the top. This is by default. You see everything that we have configured for your installation. So it starts out, it's listed alphabetical. The filters work the same as they did on the installed screen. So you can filter for NMR or EM or crystallography or whatever, or you can just use the search and just search for the title that you want. You could, if you hit reload, it refreshes this, gets the metadata from our servers, reloads the available list of software. And then there's the 2 blue buttons there so that you can, which are hidden by my Zoom at the minute. So I suspect they're still there. So those are there so you can install the programs. If you click on a title, you'll get an inset box here. So I clicked on ADXV and it gives you this box, which shows you title, the versions. There's a drop-down menu there where you can click and it shows you can select the different versions. That's not the only way to select a different version. You can do it from the screen behind it, or you can select the version there. Then there's a description, the technical notes, then links to the website, manuals, whatever content that's associated with that given software title. So you can go ahead and select versions there, click the ones you want. They will be added to the task manager for install, reinstall, removal, whatever operation you want to perform can be done from there. But you can also do it in the pane that's behind it. It's really just there so because since it blocks the buttons underneath, it gives you the ability to still act on the software without having to close the window. All right, the tasks pane. So this is where all the action happens. So in the installation manager, all the actions that you do for installations, updates, removals, make additions to your tasks. And then when you're ready to go run your tasks, you can go and hit apply all tasks, and it will do the installations, updates, and removals all in one batch so that you can queue up the things you want and then go fire them off so that you don't have to do a bunch of sort of sequential operations. One of the great things about this is that it runs in parallel. So if you install 5 packages, you'll do 5 downloads. So it should install pretty quick, depending on your bandwidth and file system speed. So these are the tasks. In my view here, they're all completed, but if they were installation, removal, or updates, the status would reflect that, or the action would reflect that. And then it would say pending over in the status. So the docs tab, this just goes to our wiki with the documentation for our titles. We're planning to expand this in the future. There's not a whole lot there, but right now it just directs you to the documents. Contact, this is a good place to go to report a bug or request new titles, or if you have some other need to get in touch, you can go here and it will redirect you to forms that you can use to submit tickets that will land in our ticketing system, and we can follow up with you directly. So that's a quick tour through the interface. I'm going to just show you quickly a couple of installs. So this is what, so I'm just going to go in here, I'm going to type in rely on and install it, right? So I'm going to click, add it to the queue, to the tasks, and I go. So from the tasks here, you can see that rely on version 3.1.2 is added. I hit apply all tasks, and now it shows me the 2 tasks that it's going to complete. If I had 10, it would be 10. This installation core, this is just a set of core libraries that we include, that we update with all the installs. So it just synchronizes those. So it shouldn't be a significant amount of data. So if we go ahead and continue, click yes. And now we'll see, we get a nice progress bar. If we had multiples here, we would see multiple progress bars running at the same time. So just to jump forward a bit here, you can see you get a nice symmetric of speed and the transfer as it completes, and then software is installed. So from there, you can go to the SBGrid shell and just fire up your terminal and run rely on. So here's another one of these. So if I'm going to just install CTF find. So CTF find is a small program from Nico Grigoriev to do CTF correction on cryo-EM micrographs. I'm going to use one of these filters, the EM filter. Scroll down, find CTF find, take a look at it. Okay, that's what I want. I'm going to hit the install and add it. I'm going to add it to my tasks. So updates and removals work the same way. So it would just add an update task or a removal task, and then you would just go back to the task manager and then run your tasks. So this is what updates look like. So you can see in this case, I'm in my installed section. I click the installed button, and my CCP4 has an update. So, and it tells me it's 7.1 to 7.1. It's a patch update. So that usually means that it's a small change, just a bug fix or something that was not significant enough to warrant incrementing the version. And a lot of times they're just changes that we are making at SBGrid, so that to change something in the environment, maybe add something in. I think this particular one was just to add in Morda, which is, I think, a molecular replacement tool. So you can see in the red circle in the upper left, the available updates, there's a 1 there. So that's a filter. If you click available updates, you'll just see the CCP4 update. And that green text is they act kind of like links, but they're sort of buttons. And so you can click that, and it will it'll add it to the tasks queue. And so then you jump back over, and then you can apply it. So, and then it'll go and it'll run your CCP4 update. All right, so that's how application installation and updates work. I've got a few what I think are frequently asked questions for people who are using these. Can you use this with the command line installer? And the answer is definitely yes. You can use both at the same time. They're not, I mean, I don't know if you want to run both of them simultaneously, but you can switch between them and they're not mutually exclusive in any way. So if you install software with one, it'll be visible in the other, vice versa. Software is installed into opt SBGrid. So that's the directory where we install it by default. Can you install it somewhere else? You can't easily do that with the GUI, but you can with the command line version. So the command line version allows you to specify. And if you specify in the command line version, it still works in the GUI. It's just the option to specify the directory where you install isn't currently present in the graphical interface. Though it's trivial to install a small, just do an activation into opt SBGrid, move that SBGrid directory wherever you'd want it to be, and then just put a symlink from that location to opt SBGrid, and then everything should continue to work. It's particularly good if you don't want to install a large amount of software on a small system volume. How are the dependencies handled? So the dependencies for the titles are handled automatically. So if you install rely on Linux, for instance, you should automatically get the CUDA libraries it needs, OpenMPI, all of the compiler libraries that would be required. All of that should be handled automatically. If you install a title and you find that something's missing, a missing library or a missing application that it calls, let us know. We'll add that in, make sure. Dependencies are, they come in two flavors, really. They come in sort of a runtime dependency where it's a library that the application won't run unless you have that library. Those are easier to spot and include. What's not always easy is things like, if you have an application that calls another application, but it doesn't always call that application. Say, Phoenix calls Rosetta, but it only calls it specifically with certain operations. So that may not be included in every case. And in some cases, we may not want to, like, just because Rosetta is huge, I might make that a separate install. But for most things, we try to put those together so that if you're using program X and it needs to call program Y all the time, then we include program Y along with it. Can you use this on other Linux distributions? So a lot of people use Ubuntu or Mint or Debian. You can probably use this without any problems. I mean, I have to admit I have Ubuntu on my desktop here. But the caveat there is that for the software underneath, it's not our testing platform. We don't go through every title on Ubuntu and verify that it works. So most things work. We package things so that they work pretty well and they're relatively portable. But you may run into some surprises. You can drop us a line and let us know when it's broken on the platform you'd like to use. Odds are pretty good we'll fix it. Particularly, but we can't warrant that you won't run into issues. I say now Ubuntu and Mint and Debian are pretty much, there's very few things that run on CentOS that don't run on those, but there's a handful. So, but it's possible. It's possible to use it. Can you use some of these bleeding edge Linux distros like Arch or Gentoo or like Intel's Clear Linux? You probably can't. I mean, those have newer versions of sort of core libraries. We don't use many of them, but you're likely to run into a lot of issues trying to run the software with those. And we don't have very many people who do use those, so we don't get a lot of tickets back that we fix. So if you choose some, my guess is that you're probably aware of what you're doing if you make the choice to run one of these. So you're probably going to be on your own. All right. So upgrading from previous versions, you should be able to just drop this into place and it will work. So you shouldn't need to go through any conversions or migrations or anything like that. If you've got the old graphical installation manager, you should be able to add a new one and just continue like you did before. At some point, the old installation manager will be deprecated and discontinued. It's built on kind of an aging stack, and it's probably not, at some point it will just stop working on new Apple operating systems. So the command line version is always going to be more compatible with everything, but the new version should work on Big Sur and newer, but the old one you'll eventually have to migrate off. All right, so what's coming next? So we have a few new features that we're planning to include into these future releases. The first one is that I think users would really appreciate. It's just a better visibility into the things that we're changing and what we're doing. So in that panel that I showed you earlier with the details of the software, we'd like to include changes that we've made. So we added a new version, we made a change to fix a bug. We're going to start adding that stuff in so that it's more visible to users. One thing that we should clearly have that's not present now is the size information per version. Right? So if you install a version, you want to know how big it is. If you want to, are you installing a gig of software or 50 gigs of software, right? That's a big difference. So we have that in progress. We have that sort of built into our backend now. And we just have to do the last bit of work to make that visible. So that's coming very soon. Expanding the technical info in docs for the title. I think this sort of rides along with the changelog changes, where we'd like to give more information about the different builds that we have, the different versions that we have, so that users who are on, say you have an old CPU type in your workstation and new versions don't work for you. So you should be able to look at this and tell, okay, these are the versions that are compiled for old CPUs. These are the versions that are usable on sort of bleeding edge CPUs. This is particularly relevant for things like GPU accelerated applications like Rely On, right? Where you've got 5 different CUDA builds, and you're trying to figure out which version is best for the card that you have and the machine that you have. And so we have that information now. It's spotty. It's kind of spread around in a couple of different places. We plan to sort of make a central source and make that visible right up front. And along the same lines, we'd like to deprecate software versions explicitly and make that known, right? So it's not usually an issue for users because we rotate through the last 3. Usually by the time we kick out a version, it's been around for long enough that people are pretty much done with it and they've moved on to the newer releases, but not always. And so as we move old versions out, and as we plan to move old versions out, we'd like to let our users know that if you're using this version, that it might be time to migrate off, or let us know that you're still using it so that we can pull that deprecation notice off and keep it in the tree, because we don't always know when certain older pieces of software are being still being used, right? So just because they're older doesn't mean it's not still very useful. So so those are features that are on our list. We have lots of other ideas. So unfortunately, we have more ideas than we have time to implement. So we've pared them down. If there are things that you see or feedback, ideas, definitely get in touch. Let us know. I can't promise we'll be able to make everything happen, but I certainly I know that our community has a lot of great ideas. So, and I always like to hear. So just to wrap up, to get started here, you can register if you don't have an account already. You can download versions at sbgrid.org. For everybody who's on this call right now, if you'd like to get started now, and you're comfortable because the documentation is not up on the wiki yet, but email bugs@sbgrid.org and I'll send you a link and you can download the new version right now. And we can get started. If you've already activated on your installation previously, then you don't have to go through. You'd have to deal with Gatekeeper on Mac, but you won't have to go through activation or any of that. You should be able to just fire it up and it should just work. And And I'd love to get some testing and, like I said before, get some feedback on the software. So, and I think that's my last slide. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, discuss any aspect of this or SBGrid in general. We can set it so people can unmute if you'd, I'm gonna stop my screen share here. Yeah, any questions?
We've had a bunch of good questions coming in through the chat to
Okay,
me.
cool.
And as you've been going, I'm going to scroll through the ones that I've got, but a bunch of them I think you've already answered as you were talking. Yeah. But one question that actually occurred to me as you were talking, is the SBGrid shell button something where you can configure it to point to the exports terminal if you're running into the exports issues?
I don't think you can do that right now. Maybe that's something we should consider. I think right now it opens the Mac terminal. On Linux, I think it obeys the environment variable settings, and it will do whatever you've got set. I think it's a xdg_terminal or some similar environment variable. You're able to change it, but I think on Mac it just uses the Mac terminal. So, we might consider changing that. The issue that Pete's referencing is that exports on Mac lately has been a real sort of hodgepodge of, some people it works, some people it doesn't. X11 forwarding works, X11 forwarding doesn't. It's been a bit of a struggle, but one thing that seems to work consistently is that if you use the exports terminal from inside the application, then forwarding works more reliably. Unfortunately, that terminal is really ugly, especially compared to the Mac one with the nice smooth fonts and everything. But it works. So hopefully these issues around exports get sorted as new releases come out. I think it's just it's sort of a three-way teething issue with the new Mac 11, Mac M1 CPUs, and exports 2.8 sort of mixed in with some Apple's new security features in the operating system has led to sort of strange, hard to diagnose issues. Things like you run a command and it just hangs for indefinitely. And so there's no error, there's no log, it just sits there doing nothing. So the exports terminal is a good way around that.
Hi, Jason, this is Ram. A quick question for you.
Sure.
Some applications like Buster requires a license. So when we install the GUI, does it automatically prompt you to where to read the license file, or you have to go manually and put the license file?
You still have to manually put the license file in. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So it doesn't create the program's local directory. So in SBGrid for certain applications, mostly global facing applications, but I think there's DivCon has this, and any application where you have to bring a license file, you have to make this directory and put that in there. That is a step that we've described on our webpage, but it still seems to trip people up because the naming can sometimes be inconsistent. I mean, even the global facing one, they use the British spelling of license, and so like those seemingly little things are enough that it causes headaches, right? So if we had a way to manage that explicitly, it could really help users, I think. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let me think about that.
Thank you.
Currently, no, but
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So one other question from the logs that you partially addressed was the space issue, and we're talking about telling people or reporting in the UI, this is how much space this title is going to need. Is that also going to check the system disk and say, hey, you're installing on a disk, and we can tell you Schrodinger is however many gigs it is, but you have 2 megs free?
Yeah, we've been hesitant to do that, but it seems like it would be a fairly easy thing to add. I guess the only reason we've been hesitant to do it is because I know that in certain university environments, those commands to check the space available on disks can be a little hairy if you've got network mounted volumes that aren't responding, or or otherwise hung. The commands can hang and they can just sort of lock up the system, so.
And they can also be meaningless. Like there may be enough free space on this network drive, but your quota is a lot less than that free space.
True.
And the
Right.
quotas are very system dependent.
Yeah, and this idea of space is also a little tricky, right? Because the file systems are compressed now. So the spaces that they tell you aren't the spaces that the applications actually occupy on the disk. So we might tell you need 50 gigs of free space, but I know on our file systems they're compressed. You can easily get away with 30. So yeah, it's a little tricky, but it's better than not having any information. So we probably won't check. So you have to be careful not to fill up your disk on your own. But at least if you have the information to do that, it'll be easier, right? It'll be easier to sort of make the check. But yeah, it might be something we should do. Filling up your disk is kind of annoying.
Oh yeah, I've tripped over that too. Why doesn't this work? Oh, I filled up my root disk.
Yeah, exactly.
For the documentation improvements that you were talking about going up on the wiki, is there going to be one of the fact pages in there, or just like have your fact slide on it?
I think that the wiki pages are sort of central, they have examples for how you might use applications that are sort of tricky, right? And so I think that the documentations for some applications are pretty good, and you wouldn't really ever need them. But the place where I would like to see it, and where we've bothered to make the sort of relevant pages, is where the usage in SBGrid might differ from what you'd see on a term or on a website with a tutorial, and that might be because the version is different and it's changed. It might be because if you choose the wrong seemingly okay executable, like it's just not the right way to go, or the there's trickiness around like arguments or something. A few applications come to mind. I think
I think this question was actually more towards, like, you had a slide that was a fact for just like SBGrid, like where does it install, and
okay.
That's.
Yeah, I think that should just go in the wiki.
Yeah,
I think that should
that's
just go.
something that looks like we don't have up there currently. So.
Yeah, we don't have that there currently. Yeah, but I would like, I was going a little easy to post the FAQ on the wiki. I'd like to see better examples for all the software titles, but we'll see.
So what I think that runs through all the list of questions I don't think were answered in the chat. So if you have a question that you asked in chat that wasn't answered, or you've got a question you didn't ask in chat, please bring it up.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Can we install both the Mac and Linux version on a Linux server and still access from Mac through NFS?
You can, but only with the command line version.
Not the
so
GUI.
For the graphical one, I haven't tried it. I think it'll work, but I don't think you'll be able to install the Mac software. But we have a different workflow for the NFS-based installs. If you wanted to install everything on NFS, and you wanted to have the Mac software in the command line version of this, we have a feature that will it takes a single flag and it will install all the new titles, upgrade all of the titles on the machine that need to be upgraded, remove any of the obsolete ones, and it does it all in one operation in parallel. So the idea being that you could just run this every night or something, and it would update, and that works for Mac and for Linux. So it would be very similar to the sort of site installation we have now,
right,
except for it has a lot of nice benefits. One being that it's surgical. It just does the titles that have been updated, no long syncs, and it's parallel, so it's really fast. So you can take advantage of all the bandwidth that you might have to install lots of things at once. So but the graphical one should still show you the branch of the machine you're on. So
Okay.
if you did want to pull it up and say like, install Rely on, it should work. I don't think it pays any attention to the other Mac branch though.
Okay.
That's a good question. Yeah, that was sort of one of the issues we wrestled with as we sort of put this together was you look at examples of other package managers like, Linux has, apt and yum, and Macs have brew and port, and there's conda, which works on everything, but none of them allow you to install software from one platform onto another platform, right? So you can't install, Mac binaries with conda onto your Linux machine.
Right.
So, so there's no good examples in the wild of like how to do this.
Okay.
So I think, so we just left it out of the graphical version.
I think just makes the management easy, just one site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the graphical version really is sort of catered to the single workstation, maybe a GPU rig that you've got for processing for IBM, or Mac workstations or laptops obviously are great. And then you could even use it in like a cloud instance if you wanted to have a GUI for some reason. But then if you had a sort of a server-based install that's on a network share, you almost certainly want to just stick that in a script. And we've got one that will just run through and check for updates, and you can just manage that with without having to do huge monthly updates. You could even pick you could pick 25 titles and just say always update these, and I don't want any of the others, and just let it run. So we've been running these internally for, I don't know, more than a year. So the clusters at Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's Hospitals have used this sort of rolling release model for a long time, and it's far superior in my opinion to our big script-based installs. So it's a nice way to keep your software up to date without having to do gigantic updates.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining. If you've got questions, feel free to reach out. If you want to use it, I'll send you a link, or just check the wiki. It should be up hopefully today or tomorrow. I'll have a page up there, and we can start getting this onto people's machines and getting software installed. So